Lore Together is proud to be part of the Boss Rush Games network. Feel free to find out more at bossrushgames.com/network. Hi, I'm Safi.
And I'm Mystic.
And this is Lore Together. This is the podcast where a husband and wife team go over all the storytelling, characters, and world building of video games. Because it's what we like to do together. We lore together.
Yep. This is episode 52. It's the start of a new year.
Yay! So
technically, patrons look at this like the last day of.
So well, the thing about this is the last one of our second year of podcasting. We've gotten to it. Apparently, people at our network said that research shows that most podcasts only get to 9 episodes. So
we're way past that.
We're way past that. Anyway, enough sidetracking. Don't you have things you need to repeat in the same tone per usual?
Yeah. If you'd like to contact us about future episodes, this episode, past episodes, you want to tell us anything that we've done wrong or right, or you just love us or you hate us, whichever, let us know. You can do that through Twitter at LoreTogether, on Instagram at LoreTogether, and through email at loretogether@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support this podcast, like you really like us,
yes,
you can do that over on patreon.com/LoreTogether, where you can pay a per episode pledge to get early access to episodes, as well as access to mini episodes and Q&As and all that fun stuff, which we will be doing more of. That's kind of one of our goals for this year.
Yeah, it's one of our New Year's resolutions. Also, Spotify now has a way to rate podcasts. So if you do not have Apple Podcasts and you haven't been able to rate us there, which P.S. if you can, please do, because we don't see those numbers because we don't have Apple because we're weird. But please rate us on Spotify. We're hoping for that full 5 stars. We hope you like us that much. Thank you.
Okay, so we've been doing a mishmash of games.
Always. We're a mishmash of games kind of couple, I have to say.
Yeah, we are once again going back to the mid-90s.
we're very much the kind. Well, we're going back to the mid-90s.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, back to the mid-90s, 1996 specifically.
Okay, that was a decent year. How old was I?
This game at least is from within our lifetime, unlike the last ones we talked about.
Well, it started well before, yes.
Yeah. So in 1996, you might know this game.
Maybe.
But
it's possible. My brother was the gamer at this time. Like I hadn't.
Well, this is another point-and-click
really
adventure.
Gotten into it. Oh, then he would not have played. He was not a point-and-click adventure gamer. Neither was I.
You do know one of the subject matters of this game, and if you don't, I will be amazingly shocked.
Okay.
Because this game is about the Titanic.
Near.
We will mention that movie, actually.
I'm singing poorly. Okay.
So, that sense of humor just is right up there with eggplants. So
I have to look. Whenever I do singing here, I don't want anybody to think that I think I sing like brilliantly well. I'm good for lullabies too, little buddy.
Right.
And that's pretty much it. As a friend to more than one opera singer, I know what my limitations are.
So, 1986, Cyberflix Incorporated from Tennessee, mostly made up of graduates from the University of Tennessee, put out a game called Titanic Adventure Out of Time.
Okay, I have definitely heard of this game before, and I've definitely read about like snippets of what this game is before.
Now, is that because I
played
it? Okay.
It's because you might have mentioned it, but it's just one of those games that, like, if you're in certain parts of the internet looking up, like, weird esoteric stuff like we do, this is one that comes up a lot. Probably because ever since that James Cameron movie, Titanic became back into the popular narrative of pop. I hate to call it pop history because it's a tragedy and it makes it sound like it's something that we, like, do festivals about and it's fun.
Right.
No, but it is part of pop culture right now.
Right.
And that's why I call it pop history. It's a popular nugget of history that everybody knows and can like cite to a certain extent.
Titanic is one of those things that just kind of is like an ever-present thing. It's a good story or a place to base a story.
Yeah, or a conspiracy if you're feeling really silly.
So 1996 is actually a very important year for this game to come out. It sold pretty well at launch, getting about 100,000 units.
That makes sense to me, yeah.
Yeah. And they held out long enough for it to skyrocket to over 1 million in 1998 when the movie came out.
Right. Titanic fever, baby. So I don't know if there's people listening who wouldn't remember this. They probably are, maybe a couple. Because I feel like a lot of the people who reach out, first of all, if you're younger than us and you reach out, we're going to treat you with respect because
right.
we don't want to make the same mistakes that the generation before us did. But anyway, a lot of people reach out to us, I think, are the same age as us, and this is like their nostalgia trip. But if you're here to learn, 1998...
Oh, there's going to be some history in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, like 1998, if you want to, from my perspective, I remember Titanic was like, it was a phenomenon unlike any other. People were going back to rewatch it again and again and again because this was before you could instantly watch a movie at home. You had to wait for the VHS release. Right. This was a movie that nobody thought was going to succeed when it was in production. It was super expensive. It was super ambitious. The way that they had to build the set in its own like closed tank, essentially. Mm-hmm. And James Cameron was just like, just give me this chance. It's my passion project. I'm really into it.
Cyberflix, like I said, held on until they could get to 1 million sales. So they did pretty good. The company unfortunately later dissolved later that same year.
Oh, no.
Mostly due to creative differences, and their project after Titanic turned out to be a flop. So those two things combined kind of just killed it off.
Yeah, I could see that.
It is a point-and-click adventure. We have a big cast of characters for the time.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bit of time travel, a bit of alternative history,
yes,
and a bit of really uncanny valley character animation.
Yikes. Yay. Okay.
Because it's not a fluid animation. It's like they took pictures of people. So you have actors for all these characters. They took pictures of them, and they're just constantly swapping between different ones.
Oh, so it's like a flip book.
Kind of. It's like
very slow flip book.
And this is episode 52. I did say last time I want to do something hopeful, and we're starting 2022. There is darkness in this game, obviously. We're going to be talking about the Titanic. We're going to be talking about...
That's a dark subject, guys.
The 20th century. And due to this time travel bend, there is this story of fixing the past, making up for past wrongs. And, I thought that was a kind of a good message where we can't change the past, but we can change how we act in the future.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're going to be stepping into the shoes of Frank Carlson.
What a name, as in like a very plain...
He is a British secret agent.
Secret agent man, which...
Though...
I can't stop singing this episode, guys. I hope you forgive me.
Though I can't quite nail down which branch of the British Secret Service he is with. It's probably MI5 or MI6. Back then, I believe the MI6 was called the SIS.
Right, because it wasn't until around World War II that... certain countries had very established intelligence agencies.
Well, they did by this point. The British Secret Service did exist. Both
right.
MI5 and MI6 predate the Titanic sinking. So,
right,
anyway, we've mentioned the Titanic. Maybe people don't actually know what the Titanic is. I doubt that, but I'm going to cover my bases here.
Let's cover our bases. We have no idea who's listening. The
RMS Titanic was a British passenger liner operated by White Star Line, which sank in the North Atlantic Ocean on the 15th of April in 1912, after striking an iceberg during her maiden voyage from Southampton, UK to New York City.
Part of the reason that this was such a big deal was that it was advertised as an unsinkable ship.
And we're not going to get into all the details of why it sank and everything. There are documentaries for that.
Half of them are probably now on YouTube because they were airing on Discovery Channel in 1996.
Of the estimated 2,224 passengers and crew aboard, more than 1,500 died.
Awful tragedy.
It remains to this day the deadliest peacetime sinking of a superliner or cruise ship.
So for those of you who are interested in Chicago nuggets of history, as Chicagoans, we know this, partly, also just being nerds, but tangentially related is the sinking of the Eastland, which was a ship that sunk off of Lake Michigan, was it? Or the river?
That I couldn't remember.
Because of poorly implemented safety regulations due to the Titanic sinking. They put on too many the safety boats weren't put on properly on an older ship that should have had more updates to it to keep sailing. And unfortunately, during a picnic for a bunch of employees at a company, a lot of people ended up drowning because, there wasn't enough thinking forward with how the safety works. So Titanic has had a legacy, and I mean, I'm sure that's not the only boat thing that's related to the Titanic after the sinking. So
yeah. So we're going to be covering, let's start the way the game starts. Carlson was booked passage on board the Titanic and instructed to remain in his cabin for the entire voyage until further instructions from his contact, Penny Pringle.
Penny Pringle, what a name. Also a very British kind of sounding thing going on.
On the fateful night of April 14th, 1912, he left his cabin to meet his past lover, Lady Georgia Lambeth, who had asked to meet him on deck.
So he left before he was supposed to?
Yes. It is assumed because of this that Carlson missed his meeting with Penny, and his mission was therefore canceled. Later that night, the Titanic struck an iceberg and sank with the loss of the 1,500 lives we mentioned, while Carlson escaped the sinking in a lifeboat.
Really?
Despite the failure of his mission, Carlson continued to work for the Secret Service for another 2 years after the Titanic disaster. With the outbreak of World War I in August 1914, however, the War Office realized the severity of the consequences of the failed mission.
Oh, interesting.
And could no longer ignore what had happened.
Yeah.
So the service fired Carlson to act as a scapegoat to take the blame.
Interesting.
Though his severance letter states that Penny testified on his behalf, considering him to be a loyal agent. Carlson was left destitute, with no payoff or pension, and for the next 30 years he led a broken life, making a hobby of fixing old watches and clocks, and even traveling on the Hindenburg's fateful voyage of 1937.
He's just
surviving
a target
there too.
For disasters. It's that feels like a mystical thing, that there's some sort of unlucky thing that's following this guy.
By April 1942, Carlson is an old man, struggling to pay rent in a rundown Eastland apartment and being threatened by his landlady with eviction onto the streets. Mm-hmm. Surrounded by various artifacts and remnants from that fateful mission, he thinks back to that night 30 years previous and wonders if there was anything that he could have done in order to change the outcome.
Yeah.
As he does so, a siren sounds off with the threat of a German air raid, and a bomb is dropped right on top of Carlson's apartment. It appears to kill him, but the explosion instead hurtles him backwards in time 30 years to the night of the Titanic disaster.
Oh, wow.
Awakening on April 14th, 1912, in his cabin aboard the Titanic, Carlson realizes he has been given a second chance to complete his mission.
Oh, lucky him.
By meeting with Penny in the gymnasium as instructed, so actually waiting until he gets a signal and actually leaving at the appropriate time instead of missing his contact. Literally, she's like, "You're late. If you're 5 more minutes late, I would have scrubbed the whole thing."
Oh, wow.
So we're talking that tight of a timeline for this one. By meeting with Penny in the gymnasium as instructed, Carlson learns that his mission is to recover a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam.
Excuse me?
The Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Omar Khayyam, who was born in 1048, lived until 1131, was a Persian polymath, mathematician, astronomer, historian, philosopher, and poet.
Wow, just a multifaceted individual.
Right. A collection of his quatrains, 4-line poems, were translated to English by Edward Fitzgerald in 1859, which he called the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam.
Okay.
Rubai is the Persian word for a quatrain, a Rubaiyat being a collection of rubai. So
there you go. That's a good homage.
This particular copy is jewel encrusted, crafted in 1911, and worth then about 400 British pounds, which is about 47,000 British pounds now, or just under $63,000.
Wow. Okay.
This book was actually on the RMS Titanic in real life and was lost with the ship.
What? Wow. Okay. So the people who wrote this game did their research or were inspired by things about the Titanic before it was popular to be inspired by things about the Titanic.
Right. So again, Carlson's mission is to recover a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, which was stolen 2 months before in Paris, and that is currently in the possession of a German colonel named Alfred Zeitel.
Oh.
Depending on his actions, Carlson can either obtain the Rubaiyat before it is taken by a stowaway, Vlad Demonic, as part of a deal between Zeitel and his Titanic contact Sasha Barbican. or fail to take it off the ship as in the original timeline. That is his mission from the beginning.
Okay.
Regardless of the outcome, Carlson learns from Penny that Zeitel's deal with Sasha was to trade the Rubaiyat for a specific painting of high importance to the German High Command.
Okay.
He also learns that Zeitel's protege and traveling companion, Willy von Haderlitz, is suspected of being a traitor and that steps are being taken to ensure that the colonel's plans are not foiled. If Carlson is quick enough, he can either obtain the painting from the cargo hold before Haderlitz takes it for himself, or it's missing from the crate, like if Haderlitz gets there before you.
Uh-huh.
Carlson learns from Penny that the painting contains secret plans on the back for British troop deployments in northern France and the Low Countries, signifying its importance to Germany if war ever broke out.
Oh, so it's kind of like their backup plan. Like, if something happens, we
Right.
have this information.
The painting is the courtyard of the old residency in Munich, painted by Adolf Hitler in 1914, and therefore a bit of anachronism since the Titanic sunk in 1912.
Yeah.
The painting shows his typical style, where buildings are very well defined.
So, side note, when Facebook was relatively new, one of the trolliest things to do was to join a group whose title was "I Wish I Could Do What Hitler Did," and it was all about his artwork.
Right.
But it was specifically titled that way to be rage-inducing.
Right.
Not funny, guys, by the way. Bad joke.
Reading a critique of the painting, as I did, because this game is light on story unless you dig into the characters, which I didn't want to get into all the characters.
Okay.
But I figured that the historical nuances that of like some of these objects would be interesting.
Yeah, it totally is.
So-
and it's real historical stuff, which we almost never do on this show.
Right. So reading some of the wiki reviews of this painting, literally people say that Hitler was a better architect than a painter.
Oh, okay.
He has a striking inability, and you can actually see this in his art. I found looking through a few more of the paintings. He has a inability to bring real detail to people in his paintings, which apparently shows a disinterest in people, but he tends to do very detailed buildings.
That explains a lot, actually, in a very scary way. That's a very scary thing to understand about. Things I would have slept better not knowing. Oh, man. Okay.
Carlson, like in the original timeline, before he gets sent back, can also meet with Georgia in various places on the ship and learns of her failing marriage to Lord Charles Lambeth, her previous affair with Sasha.
Oh, okay.
She gifts him her diamond necklace for safekeeping, intending to use it to escape her marriage and start a new life.
Near, far, wherever
Which
you
is funny
are.
that there's no connection between that. Yeah, so
It is, but it makes sense because back then, part of the reason women wanted expensive jewelry is like it's their backup plan.
right. Unfortunately, speaking with Charles later on, he informs Carlson that Georgia's necklace is actually a fake. The real necklace is being kept by Sasha in his cabin, where it'll be sold to pay off Charles's debt and then have Georgia put away.
No, this is okay. This is back in the day where guys, husbands literally were the reason a woman could have access to a bank account,
Right.
even if it was their own money. So putting a woman away because you don't like her anymore and you decided that you're going to put her in an insane asylum and call it hysteria, that was a thing that could happen. So,
Right.
Oh my gosh, this is rage-inducing.
Though the necklace is not part of Carlson's mission specifically, it is one of the main objects in the game that must be saved from the ship to get the best ending. We'll get to the endings in a
makes
moment.
Perfect sense to me. So wait, so just so I understand, Georgia, married to Charles,
Yes.
was having an affair with Sasha,
Yes.
thought Sasha was doing her a good favor. Sasha betrayed her
Yes.
and went back to Charles and was like, dude, she's trying to leave you. Oh, here's the fake necklace.
Right.
Keep the real necklace. Okay.
Yeah. That's my understanding. So I've beaten this game. I beat it in the 90s.
You're OG, baby. OG player.
I remember playing this on my Windows 95 PC.
Oh, man.
And getting through the whole thing, and it's not easy. I never got the best ending.
Oh, wow.
Because there are certain things you have to do time-wise to get the best ending, and I didn't have there weren't walkthroughs available.
And the point-and-click adventure, it's easier now to do things that feel time-related because things are real-time games usually.
There's literally a 10-minute window for one of the puzzles in here.
Oh, man.
You're
going to need to give me a walkthrough.
You start the timer when you talk to this one person. You have 10 minutes. Yeah.
And how are you supposed to know that?
Also, you have a time at the end of the game because no matter what you do,
the ship
still sinks.
Interesting.
Your mission is not revolving around the ship sinking or not. Your mission is about certain objects.
Your mission is specifically the Rubaiyat.
The Rubaiyat, the painting, and
the necklace, if you want.
A thing we haven't gotten to yet.
Oh, yeah, the necklace is technically extra.
During his mission, Carl can engage in interactions with other passengers on board the Titanic, including Eric Burns, a photographer who has turned his cabin into a darkroom, much to his new wife Stephanie's annoyance, or Andrew Conkling, a wealthy owner of Conkling Steel and one of Charles Lambeth's creditors. To take part in optional side stories that expand some of the plot points and provide additional activities to partake in. Literally, you can do like gambling and stuff like that.
Oh, fun.
After resolving the painting part of his mission, Carlson is sent to meet with Willie von Haderlitz, in the squash court.
Oh, that's right. They probably did have a squash court.
Squash, if you didn't know, is a racket and ball sport played in a walled-off room. The court is smaller than a racquetball court and apparently more dangerous.
Oh, interesting.
The ball is smaller.
Oh.
And eye protection is required if you're playing squash.
I've seen this before, yeah.
But, yeah, it's just one of those many of the racket and ball games that exist. Playing a few matches with Willie hints that he has other friends besides Zeitel and gives Carlson a ring for luck. Shortly afterward, Penny informs Carlson that Willie has been found dead in the Turkish bath.
Oh, my gosh.
A Turkish bath is a steam bath akin to a sauna.
Yes.
You know, it's...
Usually it's like some sort of hot rock situation, if I remember correctly.
In this case, it is a portable machine type thing because it's on the Titanic. So,
right.
You know, she suspects Zeitel has murdered Willie.
Oh.
And through various clues left behind by Willie and speaking with his lover, Clarice Limehouse, Carlson discovers a notebook that Willie has hidden on board the ship. The notebook contains a list of Russian revolutionaries, a group of men who plan to overthrow the Tsar that Germany is actively encouraging in order to weaken Russia as a state.
Because they really thought invading Russia in winter was a great idea, but, you know, Germany's going to be weird.
Willie was, in fact, a Russian agent who was planning to turn the names over to the Okhrana, the Russian secret police.
That poor family was doomed, unfortunately, though. Like, it was just bad timing for all of them.
Retrieving the notebook from the top of Titanic's fourth smokestack.
Oh, wait, that's where he hid it?
Yeah.
How? How did somebody not see, like, is that a spider monkey? Oh, no, that is a gentleman climbing up the smokestack. How do you get away with that?
Carlson is confronted by Zeitel at gunpoint, who confirms the notebook's importance. Before a deal can be made, the Titanic makes its fateful impact with the iceberg, and Carlson either has the option of giving the notebook to the colonel or knocking him out with a gas pen. Regardless of the choice, Carlson is subsequently incapacitated by either Zeitel shooting him or Vlad Demonic knocking him out.
Oh, so either way.
Yeah. Okay. Carlson wakes up an hour later in his cabin at 1:05 a.m. Penny arrives and informs that the Titanic is sinking, with only a little over an hour left before she founders. Carlson then has to find a way off the ship with as many of these important items as he can before the Titanic sinks, either through getting a seat on a lifeboat from Officer Morrow, obtaining a boat pass from Buick Riviera, who's a gambler, or being given a seat from the Gorse Joneses, a wealthy couple.
Okay.
If he fails to do so, then he goes down with the ship. There are 9 endings to this game.
That's pretty impressive for back then. I mean, it's probably easier to do with a point-and-click adventure, but that was definitely not the norm. That's still not the norm now. Like,
and the endings depend on the 4 items.
Oh.
The Rubaiyat and the Lambeth diamonds are 1 item.
Oh, okay.
We'll get to why. The painting is another, and the notebook is the last.
Painting is another note. So I think either way, the jewels are a negotiation thing, I would assume.
If Vlad Demonic has either the Rubaiyat or the Lambeth Diamonds, or both, at the end of the game, it is counted as a failure.
Ah, okay. So you need to save
Yes.
both of them? Okay.
If both items leave the ship with Carlson, it's a success.
Okay.
If both items are lost at cards with Bjork or Riviera, it is also counted as a success.
Because they're still not in Vladimir's hands.
Yeah.
Okay.
The painting, if it goes down the ship, it's a failure.
Yes.
If it leaves with Colonel Zeitel, it's a failure.
Yes.
If it leaves with Carlson, it's a success.
A success. Okay.
And the notebook, if it goes down with the ship, failure.
Wow.
If it leaves with Vlad, failure. If the notebook leaves the ship with Carlson, success. So,
okay.
here are the 9 endings.
Who's ready for spoilers that are older than your kid? Yeah.
Number 1, total mission failure. You failed again on a lifeboat. You go down with the Titanic. Game over. It's not an actual ending,
Yeah.
but it is a game over screen, and essentially history is going to play out mostly the way it already has.
Right. Yeah.
Number 2, if only. World War I occurs as Vlad is able to get his funds to finance the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand.
That explains a lot. Yeah.
World War II occurs as the failure to save the painting allows Hitler to rise to power.
Seems like a big leap of historical information for me, but yeah.
The Russian Revolution occurs as the list of radical names in the notebook never makes it to the Russians.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm like 50-50 on the revolution thing, okay?
As Carlson narrates in his 1942 apartment, he muses if the past could be changed before he is killed in the original bomb blast that sent him back in time. You didn't get any of the items.
Yeah.
Number 3, nuclear Germany.
Whoa, okay.
World War I does not occur as Vlad escapes the Titanic without the means to finance the Black Hand.
Yeah,
Black
fair.
Hand was the
group that was trying to assassinate Franz Ferdinand, and by luck happened to be eating a sandwich at the right spot to shoot the lost caravan.
Right. World War II occurs as the failure to save the painting allows Hitler to rise to power.
Okay, but it's not called World War II anymore, I'm sure. I'm sure it's just called the Great War, the Nuke War, whatever.
The Russian Revolution occurs as the list of radical names in the notebook never makes it to the Russians. In 1927, Hitler overthrows the Kaiser and channels the full power of a Germany unweakened by World War I into industry and high-tech weaponry.
Okay, so problems with this. The reason Hitler got into politics was because of the Versailles Treaty that happened in World War I. It would not happen the same way. Hitler was only angry about Germany getting disrespected because Germany literally got disrespected after going into a war on behalf of Austria. Austria was a paper tiger. Germany was like, we got you, boo. And then it turned out they were literally just bet on the wrong horse at that point. And that's why Germany was ready to be like, we need to look out for ourselves. Dude, we should also blame globalists, aka racist stereotypes of groups that we don't like in our country anymore. Like, it just, okay.
You are correct.
I know it's a video
Can I
game.
continue?
I know it's a video game. I just have to, but you know how it is. I have to say these things out loud because.
You said it for this one. It's going to come up again.
Okay. All right. Just refer to that rant or next time it comes. I'm just saying.
Germany develops the first atomic bomb in 1939.
That I believe could have happened.
The West, weakened by several decades of complacency, now finds itself facing a nuclear-armed Germany bent on world domination. As Carlson remarks that it's not a question of if, but when Hitler will use his weapons, he muses if the past could be changed before London is vaporized by a Nazi atomic bomb.
Yeah, okay. We all know why I have issues with that interpretation of history, but whatever.
Soviet tidal wave, number 4.
Okay, let's see what happens here.
World War I occurs as Vlad is able to get his funds to finance the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. Mm-hmm. World War II does not occur as the painting's fame as the sole artifact from the Titanic means Hitler becomes a known artist. Like, he gets fame as an artist. He had the only painting that survived the Titanic.
Oh, and hence, okay. Okay. All right.
A Russian Revolution occurs as a list of radical names in the notebook never makes it to the Russians. I'm going to be repeating myself a little bit here. So,
okay.
As a result of Germany being weakened by the First World War and the failure of the Nazis in their rise to power, the communists seized power in Berlin instead of the Nazis, becoming powerful and taking a totally off-guard Europe and Britain by surprise, conquering them and uniting them into a single communist superstate.
I could see this happening, but I would welcome people who know more about history to say why it wouldn't.
As Carlson remarks on how Britain has lost its freedom, he muses if the past could be changed, blah, 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 and then he is shot dead by a soldier from the Red Army. Number 5, Nazi Fury 1.
Whoa.
World War I occurs.
Okay.
He's able to get the funding. World War II occurs. Hitler never became a known artist and,
Yeah.
The Russian Revolution is aborted, and its leaders killed after the notebook is given to the Russian secret police.
Oh, wow.
When Hitler comes to power and starts World War II, the Russian Tsar's regime is too weak to resist and surrenders to the Germans. With
What?
the Eastern Front won, Hitler turns the full might of the Third Reich onto an exhausted Britain, which is forced to surrender 3 days before the narration starts.
Wow.
As Carlson remarks how Winston Churchill has been captured and hanged,
Yeah, that
he
would...
muses if the past could be changed before he's shot dead by a Nazi stormtrooper.
I don't know if you could really conquer Russia that easily. But, I mean, there's got to be a YouTube video that answers this question for me. And I don't know which one it is. Feel free to @ me on Twitter, @LoreTogether, and let me know which one.
Yeah, ending 6.
Oh,
World
wow.
War I does not occur as Vlad escapes the Titanic without the means to finance the Black Hand.
Ooh, okay.
As we've said
You mean
before.
World War I, not World War II.
World War I, sorry. World War II occurs as the failure to save the painting allows Hitler to rise to power.
Mm-hmm.
I should have shortened these down. And third, the Russian Revolution is aborted and its leaders killed after the notebook, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
When Hitler comes to power and starts World War II, the Russian Tsar's regime is too weak to resist and surrenders to the Germans.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's the exact same ending as before.
World War
I
didn't happen.
didn't
Which
happen.
means that okay. Move it. Let's move on. We could I
told you were going to bring it up again.
This rant was had once. I'm not going to bore you all again.
Number 7, Communist Russia. World War I does not occur.
Great.
World War II does not occur.
Great.
Russian Revolution occurs.
Okay.
The communists seize power from the Tsar. And Germany, weakened by the Great Depression and a decade-long struggle against the warmongering Soviets, collapses in 1931.
Oh, wow.
The Soviets invade and conquer a weak Europe. Britain is forced to surrender and Europe is united under a single communist superstate. Carlson is again shot dead by a Red Army soldier.
Okay.
Number 8, Communist Germany.
Hmm.
World War I occurs as Vlad is able to get his funds to finance the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand.
Yes.
Hitler is an artist.
Hitler's an artist. Okay.
Russian Revolution is aborted.
Okay.
As a result, Germany being weakened by the First World War
Yes.
and the failure of the Nazis and their rise to power, the communists seize power in Berlin instead of the Nazis. It's another ending we've seen. It's
So the
just
communists,
different. Yeah.
the communists are now German. The communists are now coming
Right.
from inside the house. Okay. So,
Final ending.
wait, why are communists always bad again?
These are Stalinist communists, first off.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That helps explain that.
Final ending. No more repetitions.
This is the
Everything
good
is
one.
perfect. World of
Everything
peace.
is awesome.
World War I doesn't happen.
Woo!
World War II doesn't occur.
Yay!
Russian Revolution is aborted.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the question mark. We
Like,
did.
ah!
With no wars or revolution to take foot in the world, peace and prosperity have flowed into every corner of the globe, elevating humanity to a level that only the privileged used to know of in the Titanic era. Problems with this.
Many, I'm sure.
My problem with this, it's a game. I'm doing what you just did, where I'm going to nitpick something.
Let's nitpick it.
I'm going to nitpick the world wars
Yeah.
had a profound impact on many different things,
Yes.
including the ending of colonialism.
Right.
If they
or
don't,
the dying of traditional colonialism.
Right.
Yes.
if that doesn't happen, I don't see peace and prosperity flowing to every corner of the globe to a level that.
And I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that. First of all, let's totally forget about every other continent other than Europe.
Right. It's like Europe.
We're not
And-
even talking about North America.
Right. It's all Europe.
Like, I could understand if you're only talking about Europe and North America, because unfortunately, as United States citizens, that's all we talk about in our history classes until you get to college. You're like, well,
Right.
would you be interested in something you didn't realize happened? Look, atrocities. Ah! But, yeah, there's my gosh. Like, yeah, nothing to do with what's happening in, South America or any part of Asia outside of Russia or any part of Africa. Heck, I mean, and even like the kind of science that's done is kind of different.
Right.
If you don't have wars motivating the innovation, but like
Space technology is right out.
Yeah,
That's a direct line from the Cold War.
Yeah. Like there's just
Like you don't get people on the moon if you don't have V2 rockets.
right.
Like
You don't get motivation to get Americans on the moon if you don't have Russia trying to prove to America in their passive-aggressive Cold War way that they're more advanced.
Right.
And the same, like, it was this back and forth between... Yes.
Are we arguing that the world wars were a good thing?
No.
Are we arguing that history, you cannot blanket a historical change like that? Yes.
Yes. It's the problem with alternative history is that you have to be super well researched in the nuance of the many threads that cause something. Because some threads you can cut and things would still happen exactly the same.
Right.
And some threads you can cut and you'd think it's a weak link, but it's actually holding on to a lot more than you realize.
But this is true for all alternative fiction,
Yes.
alternative history fiction. You have to kind of just suspend your sense of disbelief.
I just think for me, the whole idea that World War II would still happen if you didn't have World War I, and you'd still have Germans trying to rise to power, is just so ignorant.
But we don't
that's
know.
the part that's ignorant to me.
Yeah. But again, it's alternative history. It's up to the author to determine what does and doesn't happen.
I don't know. It just feels not very well researched. It's not to say that Germany wouldn't be part of history, period. Because, I mean, the Depression would still happen. There would still be somebody who needs to find an excuse for why everybody's feeling so awful and downtrodden.
Right.
But maybe it would have been a very different kind of change going on if you didn't have a leader like Hitler in the Nazi Party that
Right.
was a galvanizer. And it wouldn't have happened without the Treaty of Versailles. I'm sorry. I can't get over how important the Treaty of Versailles is in this whole conundrum.
And
Maybe I did a lot of studying on this for a very brief point in college. Yeah. So.
well, that's Titanic Adventure at a Time, which I think
I mean,
is
it an interesting exercise? Yes, I think it's interesting. I think the idea of like we can go back and fix
Also,
your mistakes is great.
for the time. Like, this game had a whole separate mode of just exploring the Titanic.
Yeah.
Which, for the time this came out, was considered one of the most accurate recreations.
Oh, yeah.
So,
They were able to take advantage of that. And props to the fact that most everything they're mentioning on that boat makes historical sense.
except for the painting.
Except for the painting, which, yeah, I mean, come on. Anyway, so, but it makes...
It is nice to have that kind of thought exercise of alternate history, though. a little
Yeah.
bit. So, but that's episode 52. I have no idea what's coming next.
I don't know.
Actually, no, I do. It is a more modern game.
Okay, so it was made in 2006.
No,
Ooh.
it's definitely... I don't remember when it was made, but it's definitely in the last decade.
Okay.
Probably in the last 5 years.
Oh,
It is a mystery game.
I don't think I like it. I'm already... So you've had me do 2 point-and-click adventures
This is...
in a row.
Okay, so the next one is also a mystery. It's a little bit... It's not point and click. It's first person.
Okay.
But it's like a murder mystery investigation thing.
I'm not good at mysteries because I usually don't care. That's...
I think you'll like this one because of how it's presented. It's got an interesting twist to it.
I don't know. I'm not... I've tried to read mysteries and I just don't feel like solving them. So hopefully you guys won't be bored when we do that live stream. But the next live stream that we'll be doing, our first live stream of 2022 will be...
Titanic.
Titanic. So...
And then I'm going to explain. I don't have only puzzle games and like these old games.
Well, of course you don't only have puzzle games. It just happens to be that that's what you're focused on right now for whatever reason.
But after after next episode, I do want to get into a more actiony game. And a modern one, too.
Action sounds right. Come from my microphone. Ooh, ooh. Mystic's irritated.
Thank you guys for listening. I hope that you guys have a wonderful 2020. 2022.
We've already had 2020. We're not going back, Mystic. We're not going back.
But anyway, so this is our first episode of 2022. We hope you have a wonderful 2022.
Yeah.
And that you had a wonderful new year. And we will catch you guys soon.
Catch you soon. Bye.
Bye.